Welcome to The Critique. Today we're looking at a piece that's really two scripts in one.
It really is.
It starts as this very rigorous analysis of a congressional hearing on abortion medication.
Featuring Dr. Nisha Verma. Yep.
And then it just hard pivots into a commentary connecting it all to spiritual warfare, Epstein, and, well, satanic influence in politics.
It was a journey. I mean, it felt like I was watching two completely different movies playing on the same screen.
That is the perfect way to put it. So the listener wants to maximize impact. Let's get right into it. The main issue isn't the subject matter, it's the collision.
The collision of genres, yeah.
The effectiveness of the evidence-based medical argument about mifepristone safety is just critically undermined when it's immediately juxtaposed with these high-concept conspiracy theories.
Okay, so let me push back on that just a little, just to play devil's advocate.
Please.
The author is clearly writing for an audience that already buys into that whole spiritual warfare narrative.
Right.
So if that's their brand, aren't we risking, diluting their voice by asking them to tone it down?
It's a fair question, but if you look at their stated goal, they want their work to be robust, logical, and well-supported.
Okay.
They want to overcome weaknesses in argumentation, so even if your audience loves the spiritual angle, there's a credibility tax that you have to pay when you mix these things.
A credibility tax. Explain that concept for me.
Okay, think of credibility like a bank account. You start the episode with a full balance.
Mm-hmm.
The script opens with that think before you sleep segment, and it lays out a very specific logical chain about the dangers of telehealth prescriptions.
It cites the lack of ultrasounds, ectopic pregnancies, that case of the 23-week pregnancy.
Exactly. Clinical, administrative risks. The data is solid. It's grounded.
So you're spending very little credibility to get the audience on board with that.
Precisely. It just makes sense. But then we hit the Noxenor section, and suddenly we are not talking about FDA regulations anymore.
No.
We are talking about Pizzagate, melted cheese code words, satanic child-eating cults.
And that's where the account goes bankrupt.
That's it. Every time you ask a listener, especially a persuadable one who isn't, deep in the forums,
Right.
to believe that a politician is literally eating feces or sacrificing chickens to Moloch, you are charging them a massive credibility fee.
So by the time you get back to the legitimate point about Dr. Verma,
The listener is tapped out. They've already categorized the whole thing as a rant.
it creates a guilt by association effect. The legitimate medical critique is now tainted by what? The story about scimitars on Epstein's island?
It forces the listener to make a choice. If I believe the stats about the 10% failure rate, do I also have to believe that George Bush is a demon worshiper?
And most people will just say no to both and walk away.
Exactly.
So how do we fix this without sort of stripping the soul out of the piece? Because the author clearly feels very strongly about this.
The suggestion is to decouple them. Decouple the specific policy critique from the metaphysical commentary. You have to preserve the integrity of that safety gap argument.
Okay, practically, what does that look like? Are we talking about two different episodes?
I think so. Or at least two very distinct segments with different goals.
Okay.
Keep the first part focused entirely on the administrative failures. The FDA removing in-person requirements, for instance. That's a bureaucratic decision with real medical consequence. Stick to that.
And for the Nuxenar transition?
Frame it differently. Instead of saying the conspiracy theorists were right all along, frame it as a sociological analysis.
Of why people lose trust in institutions.
Yes. You can discuss the feeling that elites are hiding something without committing to the specific and debunked details of cheese code words.
That's a huge distinction. It shifts the argument from "this crazy thing definitely happened" to "here is why people are suspicious of power." That's much more defensible.
And I'd go a step further. A concrete edit.
Go on.
Remove the specific references to eating feces and scimitars from the argument about abortion pills. They are tonal kryptonite to the argument about whether a woman needs an ultrasound before taking a Class X drug.
We should probably clarify that term, by the way. Class X drug.
Good catch. Yeah, in FDA terms, Category X or Class X means drugs proven to cause fetal abnormalities. The risk of use in pregnant women just clearly outweighs any possible benefit.
So these are serious, heavy-duty pharmaceuticals.
The most serious. So when the author pairs a discussion about mailing these drugs with a story about cheese pizza code, they're taking a life-and-death medical issue and wrapping it in internet folklore.
It just trivializes the medical reality.
It does. Now, let's look at the rhetorical style, because even if the logic was separated, the delivery is causing its own problem. The critique here is about the boomerang effect of ad hominem attacks.
This stood out to me immediately. The source material identifies an incredibly strong rhetorical opening.
A gift.
It's a total gift. Dr. Verma refuses to answer, "Can men get pregnant?" despite claiming to be a person of science.
Rhetorically, she's painted herself into a corner. She looks evasive, ideological.
But then the commentary comes in and basically rescues
How so?
by immediately resorting to just vitriol. The script calls her a retard, a demon, a whore, and scum.
Right.
It says she should be thrown in prison. It suggests bullying is the only tact.
And that actually generates sympathy for her. It shifts the listener's focus from Dr. Verma is dodging the question to the narrator is an aggressive bully.
Her incompetence gets lost behind the narrator's aggression. The material even uses that analogy, the Andrew Wilson versus a Muslim debater thing.
And I think it misreads that dynamic.
How?
The victory in that debate didn't come from just shouting. It came from identifying a fundamental worldview clash, about cousin marriage in that case. The bullying only worked because it was exposing a contradiction.
Not just asserting one?
Exact. So, the suggestion here is to employ strategic silence and ironic juxtaposition rather than just insults.
Strategic silence, I like that. So instead of calling her a propagandist, you just play the clip?
You just play the clip. Replay her quote, "I am a person of science."
Okay.
Then, immediately play the clip where she refuses to state a biological fact. And then, you say nothing.
Let the silence hang there.
Let it hang for 3 seconds. That is so much more painful for the subject than being called a name. The silence forces the audience to sit with the contradiction.
It really does.
And let's apply that to the other big instance of this, the 1 million abortion statistic. The narrator calls the women who get them whores who couldn't control their orgasms.
Which is just going to make half the audience turn it off right there.
But right next to that insult is a devastating statistic.
That 96 to 99% of them are for convenience, not for rape, incest, or life of the mother.
The data point is the weapon.
The data point is the weapon. The insult is just noise.
If your goal is to radicalize the listener, you do that by showing them that 99% of these aren't the tragic, hard cases the media talks about.
You show them the reality. Calling them names just lets the audience dismiss you as a misogynist. It's an off-ramp so they don't have to face the data.
It's about discipline. It feels good to yell scum, but it's more effective to calmly read the statistics.
Okay, so let's drill down into the legal section. This is where the script actually has a smoking gun, but doesn't really pull the trigger prop.
Yes, we're talking about the Cooper Ryder case.
The case in Texas, right? The man who allegedly spiked his partner's drink with abortion pills he got online.
Yes, and this is a critical piece of evidence. It directly addresses the core safety argument. The pro-access argument is always, telehealth is safe. This case proves that's not true.
It proves the loopholes allow for non-consensual administration, the roofie argument.
Exactly. But the script moves past the mechanics of it so quickly. It starts talking about how the pill provider, Aid Access, is a foreign company and calls it an act of war.
And act of war is a geopolitical abstraction. It sounds like hyperbole.
It does. The suggestion here is to drill down into the procedural failure. The script mentions a screenshot of the Aid Access website.
I have the note here. The text on the site says, the pregnant person must answer these questions themselves.
Okay, think about that. We're talking about a Class X drug, and the only verification is a text box that says, promise you're the patient.
It's the honor system.
It's the honor system for a dangerous medical procedure. The script needs to hammer this point. Don't just mention the screenshot. Read it. Describe the user interface. Walk the listener through how easy it was for Mr. Ryder to lie.
Which would directly dismantle Dr. Verma's testimony where she claims there are strict screenings.
Exactly. Imagine a split screen in the listener's mind. On the left, Dr. Verma saying, we have strict protocols.
And on the right, the Aid Access website saying, just click yes.
You don't need to call it an act of war. You just need to show the system is wide open for abuse.
There's also a missed opportunity here to explain shield law. The script just complains about them being leftist.
That's a great point. It doesn't explain the mechanism. The listener needs to understand that the shield law specifically protected the prescriber, the doctor who mailed those pills without verifying the ID.
So the law in, say, New York or Massachusetts effectively facilitated a poisoning in Texas.
Correct. And that is a concrete legal argument. It shows how the policy creates victims. When you pivot to, this is an act of war, you sound like a pundit.
But when you say this law allowed a doctor to mail poison to a domestic abuser with zero liability, you sound like a prosecutor.
And it's much harder to argue against the prosecutor.
Okay, so finally, we need to talk about the framing, the analogies. The script relies on what we'd call totalizing analogy.
Right, specifically the comparison to the Aztecs.
Oh yeah, the argument that the Aztecs were more moral than modern Americans because they sacrificed people for rain, a societal good, whereas we do it for laziness.
And look, while that might be internally consistent with the spiritual warfare worldview, rhetorically it is a disaster.
You're pushing the Overton window so hard it breaks the glass.
It feels clinically detached from the listener's reality. Most people, even those who are pro-life, do not view their doctors as Aztec priests ripping hearts out on a pyramid.
When you make that comparison, you signal you're living in a different reality. It triggers that conspiracy tax again.
Precisely. It filters out anyone who isn't already radicalized. The suggestion is to use proportional analogies instead.
Bridge the listener's current understanding to your point of view.
Yes.
Okay, so what's a better analogy then? If you want to show the horror of it, what do you compare it to?
A medical ethics analogy. Compare the removal of in-person requirements for mifepristone to the regulations surrounding opioids.
That's smart. Everyone agrees opioids are dangerous. Everyone agrees we need tight controls.
So you just ask the question, why are we loosening safety protocols for this specific Class X drug while we are tightening them for literally everything else?
It highlights the political double standard. It makes the listener think, wait, that doesn't make sense.
It appeals to their logic, not their theology. And if the author really wants to convey the moral weight or the horror, they don't need Moloch or the Aztecs. The text already provides the visceral details.
You mean the medical descriptions from the source material?
Yes. The script mentions cranial nerve palsies, missing digits, and facial defects in failed abortions.
Those are horrifying images.
They are. A baby born missing fingers because of a failed chemical abortion, that's a haunting real-world consequence. It's grounded in the medical reality the script claims to care about.
Comparing that to eating feces or ancient deities just distracts from the actual physical horror of the outcome.
It does. It seems like the script has all the evidence it needs, the 10% failure rate, the Cooper-Ryder case, the lack of ultrasounds.
But it doesn't trust that evidence to be enough.
Right. It feels the need to layer on this satanic panic narrative to make it all feel important.
Which is the core friction we started. The truth presented in the source material is already compelling. The conspiracy overlay is just softening the blow by making it easy to dismiss.
Exactly. So let's wrap this up. We've covered a lot of ground here. What are the main takeaways?
It really centers on professionalizing the argument, removing the noise so the signal gets through.
We have 3 main actionable steps. First, segregate the content.
If you must discuss spiritual warfare in Epstein, keep it in a separate episode from the legislative analysis.
Let the medical argument stand on its own feet. Don't mix Dr. Verma's testimony with melted cheese theories.
Second, weaponize data, not insult.
Use that 99% convenience statistic. Use the 10% failure rate at 14 weeks data. Cut the ad hominem attack. They are dead weight.
And third, focus the Cooper-Ryder case.
Use that specific Texas poisoning case to dismantle the telehealth is safe narrative. Attack the identification verification process, or lack thereof, on the Aid Access website. Show. Don't just tell.
That is your legal smoking gun.
It is.
I honestly think if they just strip out the demon references and the scimitar stories, this could be a devastatingly effective piece of commentary.
The bones are there.
I agree completely. The research is there. The passion is there. It just needs the discipline to let the facts do the fighting.
So we invite the listener to resubmit the script after making these changes. I'd love to see how that medical argument stands when it isn't fighting for air.
Me too.
That's all for this critique. Keep writing, keep refining, and keep challenging yourself. We'll see you next time.